The red Ferrari sat under the bright daylight of the luxury garage like a wounded king refusing to die. For 5 long years, it had become the most expensive mystery in the city. World-class engineers had examined it. Master mechanics had dismantled it piece by piece. Experts had flown in from different countries. More than $2 million had been spent chasing answers. Yet every attempt ended the same way, with silence from the engine and frustration on every face. But no one expected that the person who would finally solve the impossible problem wasn't an engineer, a mechanic, or a Ferrari specialist. He was the janitor. Before we begin, if you believe that kindness, humility, and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like this video, comment below where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs inspiration today, and subscribe to Beyond Single Dad for more heartwarming stories that remind us never to judge a person by their appearance. The owner of the Ferrari was a successful entrepreneur named Vanessa Sterling. At 42 years old, she had built a technology empire from nothing. Newspapers admired her determination. Business magazines called her one of the most influential women in the country. Yet behind the success and wealth was a painful story very few people knew. The Ferrari had belonged to her late father, Marcus Sterling. He had spent years restoring the classic car by hand. Every polished piece of chrome, every carefully rebuilt component, carried his fingerprints and passion. It wasn't simply a vehicle. It was the last piece of him Vanessa had left after he passed away unexpectedly. The day the Ferrari stopped running was the same week her father died. Since then, Vanessa had become obsessed with bringing it back to life. Every year she hired another team of specialists. Every year she wrote another massive check. Every year she hoped she would hear the engine roar again. And every year she walked away disappointed. The Ferrari became famous among mechanics. Some called it cursed. Others called it the impossible machine. A few even claimed there must be a manufacturing defect nobody could identify. One sunny afternoon, Vanessa arrived at another highly respected restoration facility. The shop owner promised his team could succeed where everyone else had failed. Mechanics surrounded the Ferrari. Computers were connected. Parts were examined. Hours passed. Nothing. By late afternoon, frustration filled the garage. Vanessa stood beside the car, exhausted and angry. She felt as though she was watching her father's memory disappear one failed repair at a time. Across the room, a quiet janitor pushed a mop bucket between workstations. His name was Elias Moreno. He was 58 years old, thin, gray-haired, and almost invisible to everyone around him. While technicians argued over diagrams and diagnostics, Elias simply cleaned the floors and emptied trash bins. Most people never looked at him twice. But Elias often glanced toward the Ferrari with unusual curiosity. For weeks, he had listened silently while mechanics discussed the mystery. He noticed details others ignored. He observed the patterns of failure. He remembered things people overlooked. That afternoon, Vanessa noticed him staring at the car again. Already irritated and emotionally drained, she laughed bitterly and made a sarcastic remark about whether the janitor wanted to try fixing it himself. The garage erupted with quiet chuckles. Elias lowered his eyes and continued working. But something unexpected happened. A few minutes later, he approached carefully and asked for permission to inspect the Ferrari. The room fell silent. The mechanics exchanged amused looks. Some smirked. Others rolled their eyes. Vanessa almost refused. But after spending $2 million and hearing hundreds of failed promises, she had nothing left to lose. She nodded. Elias walked slowly around the Ferrari. He didn't touch a computer. He didn't use expensive diagnostic tools. He simply observed. Minutes passed. Then he asked for a flashlight. One mechanic handed it to him with a grin, expecting entertainment. Elias knelt beside the vehicle and studied a narrow section near the rear frame. He remained there for nearly 20 minutes. The laughter slowly faded. Then he pointed to a hidden compartment few people had ever inspected. Inside was a tiny handmade modification. Not a factory component. Not an official Ferrari part. Something custom. Something personal. Something Marcus Sterling himself had installed years earlier during restoration. The entire garage watched as Elias carefully explained that the modification had created an intermittent electrical interruption. The flaw appeared only under specific conditions, making it nearly impossible for modern diagnostic systems to detect. The room grew completely still. Several senior mechanics checked his observation. To their astonishment, he was right. Hours later, the faulty section was repaired. The moment arrived. Vanessa stood frozen. The key turned. For a brief second, nothing happened. Then the engine exploded to life. The deep roar echoed through the garage like thunder. For the first time in 5 years, the Ferrari was alive. Vanessa felt tears rush into her eyes. The sound wasn't just an engine. It was a memory. It was her father. It was every late-night conversation they shared while he worked on the car. Every lesson he taught her about patience. Every moment she thought was lost forever. Mechanics who had laughed earlier now stood speechless. But Vanessa had one question. How? Elias quietly revealed a secret he had hidden for decades. Before life became difficult, before medical bills and family hardships forced him into struggling jobs, he had been a master automotive engineer. Years earlier, he had designed specialized electrical systems for high-performance vehicles. When tragedy struck his family, he left the profession and eventually accepted work wherever he could find it, including janitorial positions. No one in the garage had known. No one had asked. No one had cared enough to learn his story. That evening, sunlight streamed through the windows as Vanessa and Elias stood beside the running Ferrari. For the first time in years, she felt peace. But something even more important happened. Vanessa offered Elias a position leading restoration projects within her company. More importantly, she offered him dignity, respect, and a chance to use the talents the world had ignored. Weeks later, the garage displayed a framed photograph of the Ferrari's revival. Underneath it was a simple message. Never judge someone's value by the uniform they wear. As the story spread across the city, people realized the lesson wasn't really about a Ferrari. It was about seeing people. It was about understanding that every person carries unseen experiences, hidden talents, and battles the world knows nothing about. And sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the one holding the answer all along. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to Beyond Single Dad for more powerful stories of hope and humanity. Special request, comment below with the words, "Everyone matters," if you believe every person deserves respect regardless of their job title. The Ferrari's engine continued to roar proudly under the bright daytime sky, but the greatest restoration that day wasn't a car. It was the restoration of faith in human potential. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary people are hidden behind the simplest roles, waiting for someone to finally see them.